Hi, Christian Chi Trend here, and welcome to the channel for unlocking your universal energy potential. In this week's video, we talk about how we shape our own personal reality and how we can use our imagination to create personal success. So whether you realize it or not, we all have a self-image of ourselves. It's something that's sort of been built up through childhood, and then we've continued to build on it. An image of who we are, where we're going, how we behave in certain situations. And we tend to conform to this image over and over again in our daily lives. So it's really important that we keep track of the stories that we're telling ourselves about ourselves. For years, I used to tell myself, for example, that I wasn't creative. It was a story that I told myself. And therefore, I didn't put any expression or any sort of energy into creating anything. I saw myself as more of an analytical guy, more of a communicator, but not really creative. But now as an example, I'm making this channel. So I'm curious, what stories do you tell about yourself? Are you one of these people who lets a few sort of minor issues throughout your day define you as having a bad day? When you have a day where a few minor details don't go your way, do you start to say that you're stressed? I'm so stressed. I'm 5 minutes late for this. I've not done this. I've got all these things to do. I'm so stressed. And then you start feeling stressed. You start telling yourself that you're stressed, usually over minutiae. And then your body starts to actually display some of the symptoms of being stressed because you've got yourself so worked up. You can choose not to be stressed, of course. Do you exaggerate? Do you exaggerate the story that you tell about yourself? If you're a little bit tired, you didn't quite get 7-8 hours sleep, you got 5-6 hours sleep. Do you go through the day saying, oh, I'm shattered. Oh, I'm absolutely exhausted, huffing and puffing as you go along? If you're a little bit hungry, do you say, I'm starving, I'm ravenous? So we tell ourselves this story and we make things sometimes worse than what they actually are. We stress ourselves out. I gave the example a moment ago of someone saying that they're so unlucky. Well, if you have that mindset, then you are going to come into bad luck. If you keep telling yourself this story, then you're going to notice things that other people wouldn't put down to bad luck and put it down to bad luck. And things that you could easily have put down to good luck, you won't put down to good luck. You won't give them a second thought. Events happen to us constantly. And we don't get to pick the events that happen to us. However, we do get to choose the behavior in response to those events. And that is what drives the result, what drives the outcome. We can choose to hold ourselves in a place of positivity. Right throughout the day. I mean, in the morning I get up, first thing I do is I'll start with a shower and hot, wash myself, and then I'll turn it around to cold. As I'm turning it around to cold, I'll start to say my daily mantra, or my daily affirmation, whatever you want to call it. And as I'm saying my affirmation, I'll twist it colder and colder, and I'll say it more and more passionately. And that helps me in two ways. One, it's sort of by putting all my focus onto my affirmation, takes my mind off the cold. But also the cold forces me to put all of my consciousness onto the meaningfulness of the words I'm uttering in my affirmation. So affirmations is a useful way to set yourself up right for the day. I have got a video of affirmations, and I'll link to that at the end of this video. But it's about holding ourselves in a place of positivity for the day and not letting little things bother us. And this is a broader view on our life as well. I mean, to quote one of my favorite films, American Beauty, there's a character, Buddy King, and he says, in order to be successful, we must first project an image of success. So some of you might be thinking, well, I don't think I can do that. Well, give it a go. I'm not asking you to believe in me. I'm asking you to give it a go and see how you get on and whether you can believe in yourself. You know, as the saying goes, fake it until you can make it. And you'll be surprised that at some point, when you start to feel better and feel like you have abundance and feel like you have success, that those things follow very closely behind. But I don't want you to just take my word for it about this stuff, about this image of ourselves and how it affects how we are and our sort of results, if you like. I want to sort of go through a few studies today. This is the book I'm reading at the moment, Psycho-Cybernetics. It's by a guy called Maxwell Maltz, who was a plastic surgeon, stroke MD, and he came across some really fascinating things in his time as a plastic surgeon that made him think, do you know what, I'm going to jack this in and I'm going to do something different instead. So the phenomenon that he noticed as a plastic surgeon, which happened regularly, was that people would come in, have say, I want a rhinoplasty, I want to change my nose, I want to change my lips, my cheekbones, my ears, whatever. Come in and request these works to be done. He would carry out the procedures, and on a regular basis, it would take the patient a considerable amount of time to actually see the works that had been taking place. So they would come out, they would sort of come back round, and initially they could, in their head, they could still see the issue that was bothering them. Now, most of the time, after a few days, they would then get used to the new image of themselves, and they'd finally be able to see the changes, and they'd be happy with it. But in some instances, people would never see the results and would continue to believe that they had this issue, even years after surgery had taken place. Sometimes they'd come back and want more surgery, and the problem would repeat. So I think it's really interesting that essentially we have this image of ourselves, and even having gone through surgery, it takes most people a few days to actually see the changes that have transpired, to sort of get used to the new image of the self. So Maxwell was so amazed by that he decided to actually quit what he was doing and actually start to get involved in writing a book on the subject and bringing in some studies. And he came across the sort of area of science known as psycho-cybernetics. So in a controlled experiment, a psychologist, R.A. Vandal, was able to demonstrate that using one's imagination to practice throwing darts at a target was as effective as physically practicing. So he took 3 groups of students. In one control group, the students did nothing. In the other control group, the students practiced throwing darts at the dartboard for 1 hour every day. In the other control group, the players sat down and would close their eyes and imagine for an hour every day at hitting the bullseye, hitting the target, at throwing the darts at the target. And amazingly, he found that the group who used purely their imagination to practice hitting the target made the exact same level of improvement as the group who had physically practiced for an hour each day. So it's amazing how powerful the human mind is in having the effect on our body to actually achieve the things that we want to achieve. There's been studies done on golf, which show that by practicing, the best golf players practice the shot in their head before they hit it. So, for example, you're thinking, your body will adjust. So if you've practiced it enough times in your head before you take that swing to hit the ball, that even if you don't quite get your swing right, your sort of mind will adjust to make some other adjustments in your body, which will still enable you to hit the ball okay. Again, it sounds crazy, but there's been studies to demonstrate this. And perhaps the most craziest one of all is the story of the amateur chess player who beat the world champion. This was in the 80s. An amateur chess player who was the equivalent of, let's say, in lower league football, lower league soccer, would go on to play the best player in the world and won. And he did that without any physical practice. He actually went out to a wood cabin in the woods for 3 months and he did some calisthenics training, some meditation, and he would just spend time every day envisaging the match in his head and how it would go. So you can look into it. The chess player was called Alekhine and the world champion was called Phillips. So what does this mean? Well, what it means is that mental rehearsing and using our imagination, the body can't tell the difference. So we can mentally rehearse for all sorts of situations. We can mentally rehearse for job interviews. We can envisage how questions might go and how we might respond to them. We're not going to think of every single question, but by rehearsing, we're going to become more comfortable with the element of surprise. So that when a question does get thrown our way that we don't know the answer to, we'll be able to come up with something off the cuff. We'll be able to gloss over it in some way. You know, obviously a lot of communication is your body language. So you might sort of come over in a certain way that somehow you sort of get past the question without really giving the ideal answer, without making it too awkward and making it too obvious that you don't know the answer. So mental rehearsal is key in so many areas of our life. We can use mental rehearsal to improve performance. There was a book by Charles B. Roth on the secret of selling. And in that book, he found that, again, people can improve their sales figures by between 100 and 400% by going through these techniques of spending some time closing your eyes and mentally rehearsing the sales pitch, mentally rehearsing the sort of questions that could come up and how you might respond to them, mentally rehearsing the worst possible thing that could happen and how you respond to it. Now, maybe some of you are saying, well, that won't work. Well, what I'm asking you is to give it a try. So if you've got something that you care about, something important that's coming up, something, maybe it's a job interview, maybe it's something else, why not try mental rehearsal? And just practice makes perfect. Start by just doing a 5-minute practice, then a 10-minute practice. You might want to build up to a half an hour practice, an hour practice. But you'll be surprised at how much better you are then when you actually come to the real thing. So in summary, the stories that we tell about ourselves are really important. So we need to select the right stories that we tell about ourselves. We need to understand what our image of ourselves is and not always let the negative traits of that play out in our behavior. So don't tell yourself you're unlucky. Tell yourself you're lucky. Don't say that you lack confidence and you can't do public speaking. Tell yourself that you can, and imagine and rehearse that you can. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it sheds some light on how we can use our imagination to create more success. If you enjoy my content, please do hit the subscribe button, share my videos far and wide, hit the like, and if you do subscribe, hit the little bell icon too, just so that you'll get the notification when I put a new video up. I'm Christian Chitren, and thanks for listening.